Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. I live in a serene countryside community where the houses are scattered far apart, offering peace and tranquility. When my wife and I bought our house 5 years ago, we were drawn to the seclusion it offered. However, as the city's population grew, more neighborhoods and communities began to emerge, including ours. The initial developments didn't bother me much. My property boasted a substantial size, complete with a private road leading to our house. I assumed there would be no issues, especially since the neighboring property, separated by a fence, was just a few feet away. The houses in our area were still adequately spaced apart, mirroring the countryside charm I fell in love with. As time passed, more houses were constructed near our property, each on its own substantial piece of land. The influx of new residents was astonishingly rapid, and it wasn't long before I noticed people taking shortcuts and trespassing on my private road. Even some of the neighborhood kids began using my field as a playground. Initially, I didn't mind. Most of the neighbors were friendly, and the children were respectful of my property. The occasional trespassing seemed harmless, as it didn't cause any damage to my house or land. However, the situation started to change when one particular neighbor began causing problems. Not only did he consistently utilize my private road as a shortcut, but he also shamelessly drove across my field. It was infuriating. No crops grew in the field, nor did I have fences, but that wasn't the point. Furthermore, this neighbor and his family frequently threw large parties, with their guests trampling over my property, using the private road, and leaving trash scattered everywhere. We tried to deter them by putting up no trespassing signs and warning signs, but my neighbor blatantly ignored them, continuing to trespass on my land. One fateful morning, after a massive party they had thrown, my wife took it upon herself to clean up the trash littering our property. While doing so, she encountered the audacity of our neighbor firsthand. He drove by in his car, using our private road, and rolled down his window to catcall her. The incident infuriated me. This once peaceful neighborhood was being tarnished by this rowdy and disrespectful individual. I was determined to confront him the following day, but he was nowhere to be found. However, he had left a mess behind, dumping tree trunks and wood on my property. Judging by his truck, he seemed to be affiliated with a logging company. My patience had worn thin. Taking matters into my own hands, I decided it was time to make a statement. I found the perfect spot next to the curved section of the private road and dug a massive hole. Fate intervened, as it rained shortly after, turning the ground muddy. Originally, my plan was to conceal the hole with plants and hope that my neighbor would stumble into it, dissuading him from using my road and property. But now, with the mud, my revenge was about to become much more satisfying. I admit it was somewhat immature, but nothing compared to the immaturity of catcalling my wife while she was cleaning up your garbage. As expected, the following day, a commotion erupted outside. My wife and I rushed to investigate. Not only had my neighbor driven his vehicle into the hole, but he was also trapped in the thick mud. In a bold move, he had the audacity to request my assistance in summoning a tow truck. Seething with anger, I agreed but decided to call the police first, informing them of his repeated trespassing on my property. Unsurprisingly, he wasn't pleased with my actions. An ongoing investigation ensued, leading to his truck being towed away, and I haven't seen it since. The consequences of his actions were finally catching up to him, and justice was being served. The incident became a turning point, ensuring that my property and privacy were respected. Update. Since the incident, my neighbor has been served with a restraining order, prohibiting him from accessing my property or using my private road. The legal proceedings shed light on his consistent disregard for boundaries, making it evident that he posed a threat not only to me, but to the entire community. The neighborhood has rallied behind me, supporting the enforcement of the restraining order and emphasizing the importance of maintaining a safe and respectful environment. With the issue resolved, the neighborhood has returned to its former tranquility. The other neighbors have expressed relief, grateful that action was taken against the disruptive individual. It serves as a reminder that boundaries must be respected, regardless of the expanding population and changing dynamics in our community. As for me, I continue to cherish the peaceful countryside setting that initially drew me to this place. My private road remains exclusive to me and my family, allowing us to savor the quiet solitude and natural beauty that surrounds our home. The next one is a pro-revenge story. At the time of this story, I was in college and had spent the last few summers and breaks working at a major car dealership. I was, and still am, obsessed with cars, and all I wanted to do was spend my days around cars and people who knew them. It was overall a great job. First, I was a washer, then a part stock boy, detailer, delivery driver, mechanic's assistant, and then a mishmash of all the jobs at the same time since I knew the place and how things worked. This particular day, I was driving. There was one customer, Marge, who seemed perfectly fine at first. Marge and another couple had dropped their cars off very early, 7 a.m., and needed rides. The couple just wanted to get dropped at their place, which was only a few miles away, while Marge needed to go into the nearby major city for work, which was about 20 miles. Upon starting the shuttle van, I asked my usual, "What kind of music do y'all like?" Instantly, the guy from the couple says, "Oh, put it on K whatever. We were rocking out on the way over." Without any comment from the others in the van, I obliged. After some conversation with the couple about Springsteen and 80s rock, I dropped them off and carried on. Marge had been mostly quiet thus far, saying only where she was going and what time she needed to be picked up in the evening. Duly noted. As we got closer to her destination, she became visibly agitated, and even though I knew pretty well where I was going, she began giving me excruciatingly specific instructions as to which cars to pass, which lane to be in, how fast to go around the exit, etc. I took it in stride and easily acquiesced to her direction, despite it being more than a little condescending. This kind of micromanaging continued until we pulled up to her office building. She reiterated that exactly 5 o'clock was the time to be there, and specifically said to be in the exact parking spot I had stopped in to let her out. It was a public spot, parallel parking with no meters, so I thought it was a strange request but said okay anyway. The last thing she said before getting out of the van was, "I also absolutely hate this music." Internally I said, "Okay, you could have told me 30 minutes ago," but again played the nice driver and outwardly said, "I'll remember that." The rest of the day went by, and the last thing I had to do was get Marge from work. I stopped at the dealer to check in and had about an hour to get to Marge's office 20 miles away. I knew rush hour traffic could be bad in the city, so I left plenty early and told my manager I was heading out to be safe. Traffic was about as terrible as can be, so around 4:30 in gridlock, I called Marge's office from the van to let her know there's a chance I might be a few minutes late. She didn't answer, and it rang forever. Eventually, her cubicle neighbor picked up the phone and told me she had already left for the day. I told the guy on the phone that if he sees her, please call me. Immediately after hanging up, I called my manager and informed him of the situation. Manager: "She just called asking where you are. She said she tried calling you 3 times and got no answer." Me: "I just tried her office and someone said she already left." I checked my phone and had no missed calls, then asked, "What time did she want to be picked up again?" Manager: 5 o'clock, you still got 30 minutes, so it's alright, don't worry about it. I told my manager that if she contacts again, give her my number, again, and that I would try to call her office in 15 minutes regardless. At this point, I figured that even surface streets would get me there in time, so I exited off the highway. This was generally correct until I got downtown. I was only a couple of blocks from the office when I hit a roadblock for construction that wasn't there when I dropped her off in the morning. It was a one-way that led straight to the front of the office, so I had to figure out a way around. This was about exactly when I told my manager I would call her office, around 4:45, so I pulled over and called. This time, Marge answered, not the coworker. I informed her of the situation, and she was audibly angry. At this point, I'm still 15 minutes before our scheduled pickup time, as confirmed by her twice and my manager once, but she is obviously pissed. I played the customer is always right role on the phone, got enough information from her about the neighborhood to get around the construction, and arrived in front of her building no later than 5:02. I called again. Again, the coworker picked up and told me she had left for the second time that day. Moments later, I saw her walk out the front and go to the parking spot where I dropped her off this morning, no more than 2 spots behind me. There was no way I could have taken the same spot since there was another car in it, but the van was obviously in view with its huge dealership logo on it. It seems as though she is refusing to walk over to the van when I see her take out her phone. Expecting my phone to ring, I wait, and nothing. She seems to be looking directly straight at me and clearly aware of the van when my phone finally rings. It's my manager, saying that she is looking for me and can't find me, accusing me of being late. I step out of the van onto the sidewalk and call her name while still on the phone with my manager. She slowly wanders over without saying a word, gets into the front passenger seat of the van. Okay, then I tried to make a quip about it being 5:04, and she is just totally silent. Okay, then, let's get out of the city onto the highway. As soon as I get up to highway speeds, she flips the duck out, claiming she had heat stroke from waiting outside for so long, saying she's never seen such unprofessional behavior, claiming that I, very unspecifically, insulted her personally, and demanding to talk to my manager when we get back. Okay then. At this point, I'm oscillating between being good by the dealership versus being good to myself. At first, I decide on the former and apologize profusely. She is completely numb to anything I say, and just keeps repeating how she can't believe how horrible of a person I am. I can't even understand what she is so angry about, and so I continue to attempt to make nice. I even offered to order her office lunch the following day, to which she replied, "Nothing. There is nothing I want to hear from you. Just get me back so I can talk to your boss, and don't say anything else to me." Okay, then. A few miles down the road, she begins her micromanaging again, telling me which cars to pass, what lane to be in, how fast to drive, etc. At this point, I was still resigned to my fate of serving this woman until she made a request. "Because we're late. 4 whole ducking minutes? I need you to stop at my house. It's on the way." She directed me to her house, which, to be fair, was actually on the way. Wordlessly, she got out and went inside, only to emerge a few minutes later with a tiny little lapdog on a leash. I swear she stared me down until she was out of sight as though she was proving something, walking that ducking yipper around the block. She got into the van 4 minutes late, most of which was because she was too stupid or blind to see where I parked, but she spent 40 ducking minutes walking with that 10-pound dog while I sat there in the van like a dope waiting. Enough, I thought. I'll be a senior next fall. I don't need this crap job. She came back to the van and got in. I put on the radio station she told me she hated that morning, only this time much louder. She very angrily indicated she didn't like the music. When I didn't react, she reached and lowered the volume herself. "Oops! Steering wheel controls, idiot! It's actually louder than before. Don't like it? Why don't you try changing the channel this time?" "Oops! Now we're on the hard rock channel and somehow even louder. Change it again? Nope. Back to hard rock." Now, I want to reiterate what I said earlier, that I'm obsessed with cars, but I will clarify specifically that I have been racing since I was 10. I started with karts, moved up to shifter karts before getting my license, got into track days with my dad by 17, and had built myself a focused Auto X competitor by the time this story happened. I was known to my friends as the one who should drive if we really need a driver. It doesn't matter if you're driving a Chevy Venture minivan. Any car is capable of a lot more than the average driver thinks it is, and I was just young and stupid enough to consider proving that this day. So we set off with a goal unbeknownst to her. You're upset about being late? Let's get you there as fast as ducking possible. With Alice in Chains blasting on the radio louder than I would ever personally care to listen to it, I'm pushing this pokey minivan harder than anyone has pushed a minivan before. It doesn't have much pickup, but on braking, there's predictable understeer, and the off-throttle weight balance makes for a nice and controllable oversteer, albeit with considerable body lean. Front-wheel drive means I can get the engine and tires to make scary-sounding noises while pulling through a corner she was already terrified upon entering. We hit an off-ramp at 80, and I late brake from the left lane into a right turn at the intersection when she grabs the door handle and screams to slow down. Idiot, we hit that apex perfectly, don't tell me how to drive. What? Slow down and move into which lane? Sorry, what I heard was, pass traffic on the shoulder at 40 and keep going despite all the gravel and debris. Please slow down, you say? Did you mean run through the Kohl's parking lot outer connector at 50 to cut the boulevard and skip the light? Because that's what I heard. It's all for you, ma'am. Let's get you there on time. It was only about 10 miles from her house to the dealer, but I probably took 1,000 miles out of the life of those tires that day. We arrived at the dealer, and she was flustered to grossly understate the situation. I stopped in front of the service door and gave my business as usual. "Here we are, have a great day," and waited for her to get out. She was still gripping her seatbelt and slowly stammered, I need to speak with your boss, manager." Given that I already decided to quit, I responded with a tone that probably sounded more fitting to a child on Christmas and said, "Oh yes, I'll get him for you," and promptly got out of the car while she was still sitting. I jaunted inside and found my manager hanging with one of the parts department guys. All I said was, "Marge wants to see you, she's not happy," and both of them immediately burst out laughing hysterically. They laughed and laughed and laughed for so long that I am certain it is a joke at my expense. Finally, I remind my manager that there is an angry customer and less considerately ask, "What the duck do you two think is so funny?" "That woman is terrible. She complains every single time we do anything on her car," says my manager. The parts guy says, "Last time she accused John, usual shuttle driver, 65 years old and patient as a saint, of being disrespectful and accused Greg, service advisor, of stealing from her." I wasn't really sure how to react at this point, but because she made me sit and wait 40 goddamn minutes while she walked her ducking purse dog, I had gone overtime, so I just silently went to clock out. After clocking out, I went back to the service office to eavesdrop on the conversation between her and my manager. I heard her quite honestly, and in great detail, recount every traffic violation and personal indiscretion I perpetrated, only in a very disjointed and exasperated manner. My manager quietly listened to all of it, while I was around the corner wondering if I would even have a chance to put in my notice before getting fired. When she finally slowed down and gave him a chance to respond, all he said was, "Marge, it seems unusually regular that you are dissatisfied with our service. Maybe it is better for both of us if you take your car to competitor dealer next time." And with that, I turned and walked off, knowing that I had both gotten away with something awful and apparently unknowingly solved a problem for my coworkers at the same time. Because she had been such a thorn in the side of everyone in the service department, nobody even cared to look into whether there was any truth to her claims. The following morning, I put in my 2 weeks' notice with the head of the dealership. "Does it have anything to do with yesterday?" "No, I'm heading back to school in 4 weeks, and I just want a couple of weeks off beforehand." He wished me luck, and I finished out my 2 weeks without being asked to drive another customer anywhere. The next one is an entitled people story. I've been working at a department store in my hometown for 10 months, and during this time, I've encountered so many entitled people. Kens demanding their children play on the merchandise stands that break easily, and Karens demanding free gift cards. This time around, while covering an evening shift for one of my coworkers, a Karen oozing entitlement from her pores came to my register and asked about the bags. Since laws were passed, my home state banned plastic bags and instead sells fabric bags for nearly $2. That seems ridiculous to me because I see so many bags ripping so easily, but back to the story, this entitled woman said she didn't have time for talking, which I get. I mean, some people really need to buy stuff and get out. When she asked about our bag policy and how much we sell them for, I was still in a cheery mood and said, "Usually my store sells them for $2, but if you're nice to me, you can get them for free." The woman gawked at me, and steam came out of her ears, not literally, in anger. I asked her if there was a problem, and she screeched, "Well, that's not nice of you. You're forcing people to be nice to you in exchange for a free bag? Are you serious, you fat cow?" For the record, I'm not a cow. I'm a short girl with curves. I wasn't going to tolerate any more mean people because I'd dealt with enough of that recently. I knew I was risking my job by being mean right back to the entitled woman, so I said, "Ma'am, I'm not a fat cow. I prefer to be called a plus-size pixie. However, I will let this slide because I want you out of the store as soon as possible. No free bags for you then. Have a nice day." I've been in customer service since my teenage years, so I've become speedy in helping customers with purchases, and I charged the woman for the bags before she left with a dagger-shooting glare. The customers in line behind her clapped for me as the woman walked away. Needless to say, they got free bags. Seriously, why do so many people forget their manners? Did quarantine over COVID-19 make everyone forget to be kind and polite? Does it kill a person to be nice or give a smile? Can someone make this make sense to me? I'd greatly appreciate it. The next one is an entitled parent story. This is about me, 28F, and my biological father. As you can tell, our relationship is strained. I seriously don't know how old my father is. I guess I could calculate it, but I just really don't want to bother. My parents divorced when I was super young, and I stayed with my grandmother and uncle, my father's youngest brother. Since I had no other male figures in my life, my uncle became dad. When I was 14, he married my mother and became my stepfather in a legal sense. But for the first 14 years, it was Grandma, Dad, and I, along with court-ordered summer holidays. Dad seriously wanted the best for me, and he thought that keeping me in contact with my father and stepmother would be the best for me. Spoiler, it was not. It really messed me up. When I took too much dinner on my plate, I had to sit and eat it all. If I did not manage, I had to wait till bedtime and then eat it for breakfast, cold. If I could not do it, lunch cold, then dinner. The most I remember was 3 days. I have IBS, so that was extra messed up. I was locked in my room for basically anything, still better than the innocent slaps. In the mornings when I awoke before them, every room other than a small guest toilet was locked. Once my stepmother took all my pocket money from me because I spent it on useless trinkets. Trust me, I did not understand. I was always told my money is mine, and I can do with it as I please. Not that I got it from them, but my pocket money was from Dad. My half-brother came into the picture when I was 6. I will never forget how I went to the bathroom in a fast food place before eating, and my brother ate my burger while I was gone. Their response? Survival of the fittest. I must have been 10, 11, and no, I did not get anything else to eat, nor was I allowed to buy myself food. While all of this is not yet entitled, I feel those incidents paint a pretty good picture of what my holidays were like. I was always happy when Dad picked me up. I was later told by Dad that my stepmother told him, "We will get her whatever it takes. She is ours." I had a very solid social worker, and Dad wanted me to be part of the decision, so it never happened. One day, around the time for pickup, Dad was late. That was on purpose. My brother was now in the picture, and my dad considered actually having me live with them. You know, a real family instead of uncle plus grandma. He changed his mind after I cried from the moment we left their driveway until we arrived home. I was so afraid he would actually leave me there. Now, because my grandmother is still alive, I tried to keep the peace and called on birthdays and stuff, and exactly that happened recently. I called my father, listened for around 30 minutes to all kinds of conspiracy crap, and how sad it is that teachers can't properly punish children anymore. I just said as little as possible. For me, the kicker came when it was time to hang up. Father, you could really call more often, not only on birthdays. Me, you know you have a phone too. Father, haha, nice try. This is your responsibility. My what now? He really thinks that. He did not even call me when I was in the hospital in February. I had to inform him. This is the second time we had the exact same conversation. It is my responsibility to keep a relationship? No, it is his privilege. That was the last call from me ever. I am not property, and I am rambling, I know. This just weighs heavy on me for all the years I spent trying. I actually have the most amazing dad in the world, and I can leave that idiot in the dust. I'm actually working on an adult adoption right now so that, should anything happen to him later in life, I am not viable for financial support, and he actually becomes my responsibility. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.